With Brock Lesnar seemingly pulled from WrestleMania Backlash and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for April 13th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. During his appearance on WWE's The Bump, Intercontinental Champion Ricochet would vow to defend his title at every major event, saying WrestleMania is always an electricity. It's the showcase of the immortals. It's something you do want to be on. WrestleMania is the top of the mountain. If I wasn't going to be on it, I was so glad I was able to spend time with my son and recharge my physical and mental battery and the family battery. I'm glad I was able to do that. As much as WrestleMania is an event, it's a feeling. It's an emotion. That's my goal for next year. To make sure that the Intercontinental Championship and myself collectively together make it to WrestleMania and make it on WrestleMania, and that this title, I want to make it as famous as possible to where it can't miss another one. This title can't miss another premium live event. It's not going to miss Backlash. It's not going to miss Money in the Bank. WrestleMania is the showcase of the immortals, and Ricochet plans on being immortal. With WWE President Nick Khan confirming that the company has changed its view when it comes to hiring talent, as they're looking for those that come from a traditional athletic background. Talking about this with Wrestling Inc., former WWE star Big Damo said he thinks the promotion will go back to bringing in independent wrestlers. Am I gutted for a lot of my friends who got cut? Of course, I am. A lot of people had food taken off their table with WWE and their terrible decisions. But at the same time, did something have to change? Absolutely. Are they going to end up signing 100 college athletes? Yes, they will, and maybe only one will work out, but that to them is going to be their win. So I understand that's the avenue that they're going to go for. It will probably work for them, but it probably won't. But then they'll cycle back, and they'll do something where they'll bring the best of the indies in again, and it's what they've done for 50 years. Following his appearance on Dark Side of the Ring's Plane Ride from Out documentary, AEW commentator Jim Ross revealed on his podcast that he felt misrepresented based on the editing. It's mixed. I have some problems with some Dark Side editing. I thought I was misrepresented a time or two in the edit. But I mean, I admire those guys' entrepreneurial spirit, and I think it's a good purpose. But I think sometimes they bite into the apple of the dirt. They narrowcast a little bit too much for me, but I'm still going to watch their shows. I'm not sure I'll be on any more of them simply because I had such unfortunate negative afterthoughts of it, but you know, you never know. Those guys are good guys, and they mean well, but I think the edit was a little bit callous, and not well thought out quite frankly, so I hope they continue to do those shows. And if they do, I'll continue to watch and we'll see. They should get better at what they do. With her becoming the latest main roster star to make the move to NXT, Natalya made an appearance for Wild On, talking about her husband TJ's role as a producer for the company. Natty would note that she has no interest in that role for herself. I don't think so. There are a couple of people. My husband, for example, was always told, "You're going to be a producer one day," because he's very gifted and a wrestling savant. I'm so biased, but he's truly a genius when it comes to how he sees a match and the vision. He bases a lot of his wrestling psychology off the NBA, how they play their games. At Survivor Series, he produced 1/3 of the show. Last year WrestleMania, he did 52 hours of rehearsals and 4 women's matches and had it all in his head. He's so good at what he does, and for the girls, he's such an inspiration. For me, I don't see myself being a producer per se, but I'm also one of those types who is never say never. I love helping people, but I love being in front of the camera. I love speaking, hosting things, being on Total Divas. I love to do something like that, do reality TV. My sister and I do a fun YouTube show. I'm not the greatest at holding a camera for someone else and then not being in front of the camera. I'm just not there yet, and I'm not sure I have the patience to be a producer. They have the toughest jobs in the entire company. They are so unsung and don't always get the credit they deserve. Somebody like Adam Pearce, he's a GM on the show, but he also handles handles things backstage that nobody sees. He trains people during the week. He works Raw and SmackDown. A lot of our producers are on the road 6 days a week. It's really challenging and hard because they don't always get an action figure or be in a video game or get that spotlight. They are the first ones in the building, the last ones to leave. If something goes wrong, sometimes they have to handle it. It's a lot. I'm too selfish to be a producer. With him previously causing controversy due to his raps regarding Simone Biles and Duke Lacrosse, Max Caster now has to have his lyrics approved by the AEW president. On his podcast, Jim Cornette criticized the company when talking about Max Caster losing to Samoa Joe and Dynamite last week, saying this about Caster: "He doesn't have to be on television. It's the Hippocratic Oath of wrestling. First, do no harm. If you want to use a talent in the future, but you can't book him right now in such a way that is beneficial to him, and you got all that money, just leave him off or let him just get wins over there and get some experience if that is what he really needs at the time." But they do YouTube, Dark Elevation. Just put Max Caster out there, let him rap, and let him have a 5-minute match with somebody that he beats. I don't care what their name is, and it's not on television. Just get him experience and keep him in motion. The brother of Macaulay Culkin, Kieran has been doing well for himself in recent times with his role on HBO's Succession. Apparently, Kieran is a big pro wrestling fan, as Freddie Prinze Jr. revealed on his podcast that Culkin wrestled The Miz in a hotel room. This dude is like an encyclopedia. I've seen it. He's been kicked out of a wrestling show. He threw a beer at Big Show. He got so mad one time and got thrown out of a wrestling show. I watched him wrestle The Miz at WrestleMania in Arizona when Bret Hart and the whole Hart family came in on Vince. They wrestled for 40 minutes in our hotel room. It was like a shoot match almost. And then Kieran lays down finally and Miz pins him for the 1-2-3, a 40-minute match, bro. He was so, I'm sure he still loves it. Back then, like, he was so hardcore, bro. He had a closet full of action figures and chose them over his girlfriend at the time. He was like, "I'm not getting rid of those. You can bounce." And she did, and he was glad. After Brock Lesnar lost the WWE Championship to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 38, it was thought the fans would be getting a rematch between these two at WrestleMania Backlash. Now, the events page on WWE.com has no sign of Brock when showing the featured superstars for the show. Ringside News had previously reported that Vince McMahon was not talking about Lesnar's status for the pay-per-view. Talking about Roman Reigns' victory at WrestleMania 38, Paul Heyman said on 101 WRIF that he is the greatest manager in history. "I think it's undisputed that I am the greatest manager, advocate, and special counsel of all time, if for no other reason than the first 35 years of my stellar career on top. I am the special counsel for the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, the head of the table, the end-all be-all. Roman Reigns, who absolutely smashed Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania to unify the WWE and Universal Heavyweight Championships, and is now the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world with this entire industry. Just based on that, let alone everything else I accomplished before, I'd say you got a pair of goats on your hand now." Based on all the talk surrounding the likes of The Undertaker and Steve Austin after Mania, Heyman would ponder the idea of either stars stepping up to Reigns. "Stone Cold Steve Austin was managed by me in WCW before he came to WWE. In between WCW and WWE, Steve Austin stopped off in ECW, which I owned at the time. So I've known Steve Austin for over 30 years and I'm very proud of him. I thought it was very smart for him to wrestle his last match instead of stepping up and trying one more run against the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. As for The Undertaker, I managed him as well in WCW. As he has revealed in the past few weeks in some interviews, I was one of the people who facilitated his move to WWE and to become The Undertaker. I also applaud his decision to enter the Hall of Fame, signifying the end of The Undertaker's career, before he got itchy and decided to step up one more time against the Tribal Chief, and get smashed the same way Brock Lesnar did this past Sunday." Talking on the sessions about his recent time in AEW, NJPW star Jay White would clarify whether or not he signed with the promotion. "I didn't sign with them or anything like that. I'm still with New Japan, but luckily I have a fair bit of freedom where I can go and do what I want, so to speak. I thought it was kind of known. There was never one of those sweet graphics put out with me, so." White would then detail his time training in the New Japan dojo before becoming a full-time wrestler with the company. "My kind of mistake when I went into the dojo is I didn't do enough research on New New Japan's history itself, the culture, and the way the system works. I really had no clue what I was going into. I also didn't want to ask too many questions because I didn't want to come off like I was being hesitant about it at all, which I wasn't. I just didn't know. Am I going to train? Am I going to get paid? Should I be expecting matches? I had no clue what to expect, so once I got there, it was a pretty big shock. We had a couple days before they started training us, where we got to watch Wrestle Kingdom, and then after that, it was basically wake up early in the morning, go clean everything, 10 a.m. you'll start training, and that'll last for 3 hours. It was pretty intense stuff. I'm not saying the New Japan system is perfect. I think there's plenty of flaws to it. That's just my opinion. I think that whole kind of respect thing, sometimes that can be overdone. In wrestling, sometimes people think that just because you've been doing something for longer, that means you're above someone else. So I feel like you've got to find a balance of that. I think it's important, but sometimes it can just be overdone. Finding a balance of that, listening to the people that have been to the places that you want to go and the experiences and stuff like that, you'd be an idiot not to listen to that stuff. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.